The ship called Remembrance glided through the darkness of space. Its metal hull reflected the distant stars as it approached the massive alien station. Inside the ship, Captain Jun Kim stood at the main window. His hands were clasped behind, his face calm but his eyes watchful. "Captain, we are ready to dock," said Lieutenant Sue, her voice steady despite the tension everyone felt. "Thank you, Lieutenant." "Tell the crew to prepare for first contact protocol," June replied. This was the moment humanity had been waiting for. After centuries of wondering if they were alone in the universe, the answer had come 3 months ago in the form of a signal from the Galactic Concord, an empire of 17 different alien species spread across hundreds of planets. June touched the simple metal bracelet on his wrist, a habit he had developed over the years. The bracelet had belonged to his sister Minji. She had died 10 years ago during the Mars colony disaster. The smooth metal reminded him of why he had joined Earth's space program, to make sure her dream of humans reaching the stars would come true. Dr. Hyun Park joined him at the window. As the ship's lead scientist, Hyun was both excited and nervous about meeting alien life forms. "Do you think they will understand us, Captain?" Hyun asked, adjusting his glasses. "That's why we brought Lieutenant Yoon Choi," June said, nodding toward the young woman working at a nearby station. June was the best cultural expert Earth had to offer, trained to find ways to communicate with completely different beings. The ship docked with a gentle thud. A voice came through the speakers, speaking perfect English with only a slight mechanical tone. "Earth Vessel Remembrance, welcome to Concord Station Alpha. Please proceed to the main reception hall." June led his team through the sleek white corridors of the station. Everything was clean, efficient, and strangely quiet. No decorations hung on the walls. No music played in the background. Just smooth surfaces and bright lights. The reception hall was large, with a high ceiling and rows of seats facing a platform. Various alien beings sat in the seats watching the humans with what seemed like curiosity, though their facial expressions were hard to read. At the center of the platform stood High Arbiter Doral. The alien was tall and thin with bluish skin that seemed to shimmer slightly. Its 4 eyes blinked at different times as it studied the humans. "Captain Jun Kim of Earth," Doral said, its voice translated through small devices the humans wore in their ears. "We welcome you and your species to the Galactic Concord. We have been observing your world for some time and believe you are ready to join our community of civilizations." June stepped forward and bowed slightly, following the protocols Yoon had developed. "High Arbiter Doral, we are honored by your invitation and eager to learn about the Concord and its peoples." The formal introductions continued as each member of the human team was presented. When it was Dr. Hyun's turn, he mentioned his excitement about sharing scientific knowledge. When Lieutenant Yoon stepped forward, she expressed her hope for cultural understanding between their worlds. Throughout the ceremony, June noticed something odd. None of the aliens seemed to show strong emotions. They were polite, but their faces remained calm, their voices flat. Even when discussing the wonders of their 17 species working together for thousands of years, there was no pride or excitement in their voices. After the formal welcome, the humans were shown to their quarters. Later that evening, Doral invited June to a private dinner to discuss the future relationship between Earth and the Concord. "Your ship is called Remembrance," Doral said as they ate strange but tasty food at a small table. "Why this name?" June touched his bracelet again. "On Earth, we believe in remembering those who came before us. The ship is named to honor those who died helping humanity reach the stars." "Interesting," Doral said, its 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "You humans spend much energy on the dead." June frowned slightly. "It's not a waste. We remember those we've lost because they mattered to us. Their lives had meaning, but they no longer exist," Doral said, sounding genuinely confused. "In the Concord, when a being dies, their body is efficiently recycled. Their personal data is archived, but emotional attachments are considered counterproductive." "You don't mourn your dead?" June asked, surprised. "Mourn?" Doral tested the word. If you mean feel sadness or loss, then no. Such emotions serve no purpose in an efficient society. June was silent for a moment. He thought of Minji's laugh, of the memorial service where her friends had shared stories about her life, of the tree his family had planted in her honor. These things weren't counterproductive. They were part of what made humans who they were. We have different views on this matter, June said carefully. Humans believe remembering our dead helps us honor their lives and learn from their experiences. Fascinating, Doral replied. Perhaps this explains certain inefficiencies in human behavior we have observed. The next day, the humans were assigned a Concord guide named Tella. Unlike Doral, Tella was short with reddish skin and only 2 eyes. She seemed more interested in humans than the other aliens they had met. As Tella showed them around the station, Yoon noticed something strange. "Where are your memorials?" she asked. "For a civilization thousands of years old, I would expect monuments to important historical events or people." Tella tilted her head. "Why would we need such things? The past is recorded in our databases." "But don't you want to honor those who built your society?" Yoon asked. "Their work continues in our efficiency," Tella replied. "Personal recognition would serve no purpose." Later, when the humans gathered in their quarters, they shared their observations. "So it's a cold," Hyun said, shaking his head. "It's like they've removed all emotion from their society." "Not completely," Yoon said thoughtfully. "I noticed our guide Tella watching closely when you mentioned your sister, Captain. She seemed almost envious of your grief." June nodded slowly. "I noticed that too. And there's something else, and have you seen any children or any signs of family units?" "No," Hyun replied. "And their history seems strangely perfect. No mention of conflicts or struggles." "I don't trust them," Yoon said quietly. "They've been watching Earth for decades before contacting us." Doral said they find our emotional attachments counterproductive but potentially useful. "What does that mean for us?" "It means we need to be careful," June said, looking out at the stars. He touched his sister's bracelet again. "They don't understand what makes us human. And I'm not sure they want to." Outside their room, unnoticed, Tella stood silently listening. A single tear, something forbidden in Concord society, slid down her reddish cheek before she quickly wiped it away. 3 months passed since the humans first arrived at Concord Station Alpha. Dr. Hyun Park sat in the small room given to him as a research office. The walls glowed with soft light as he studied the historical records the Concord had shared. Something was wrong with these records, but he could not quite place what it was. Hyun rubbed his tired eyes. He had been reading for hours. The Concord history stretched back thousands of years, telling of how the 17 species had joined together to create the greatest empire in the known galaxy. But as he read more, he noticed a pattern. No civil wars, he muttered to himself. No rebellions, no major conflicts after each species joined the Concord. He tapped his fingers on the desk. No society is that perfect. The door slid open, and Captain June entered. He looked tired, too. The talks with the Concord leaders had been long and difficult. "Any progress?" June asked, sitting down across from Hyun. "I found something strange," Hyun said. He turned his screen so June could see. "Look at how they describe major changes in their society. They never mention struggles or disagreements. Everything is just necessary adjustments or evolutionary leaps. No details about how these changes happened." June frowned. "That matches what I've seen in the diplomatic meetings. When I ask hard questions about how decisions are made, they talk about consensus but never explain how they reach it. And there's this," Hyun pointed to another section of text. "About 300 years ago, they mentioned something called the Great Stabilization. They say it saved the Concord from collapse, but they don't explain what it was or how it worked." The door opened again, and Lieutenant Yoon entered. She looked around carefully before speaking in a low voice. "I think they're watching us more closely now," she said. "I've made friends with some of the lower-ranking Concord workers. They act differently when no officials are around. More human, almost." "What have you learned?" June asked. "One of them, a maintenance worker, told me something interesting," Yoon said. He said sometimes he has dreams about events he doesn't remember happening. He called them echo dreams. And he's not the only one. Hyun sat up straighter. Memory problems? Not just that, Yoon continued. He mentioned the Great Stabilization. Said it was when the Concord found peace through emotional management. He wouldn't say more, but he seemed afraid. June touched his sister's bracelet, thinking, "We need more information. This doesn't feel right." Later that day, Tella arrived to guide them to another meeting. As they walked through the station's long corridors, June decided to ask her directly. "Tella, what can you tell us about the Great Stabilization?" Tella's steps faltered for just a moment before she continued walking. "It was an important advancement in our society," she said in the same flat tone all Concord officials used. "Before that time, the Concord faced challenges to its unity." "What kind of challenges?" Hyun asked. "Emotional irregularities caused inefficiencies," Tella replied. "The Great Stabilization implemented our emotional management technologies. These removed disruptive memories and feelings from our population. The three humans exchanged shocked looks. "You remove people's memories?" Yoon asked carefully. "Only those which cause pain, grief, or anger," Tella said, as if this was perfectly normal. "Such emotions lead to conflict and suffering. We have moved beyond them." "But those emotions are part of being alive," June said. Tella looked at him with an unreadable expression. "The Concord believes differently." That night, June couldn't sleep. He paced in his quarters, thinking about what they had learned. The Concord wasn't just a society that didn't value emotions, it was actively removing them from its people. A soft beep from his computer interrupted his thoughts. A message from Earth had arrived. He opened it and read quickly. Earth Command was concerned about the lack of clear progress in the talks. They wanted results soon. There was a knock at his door. Hyun stood there, his face pale. "Captain, I need to show you something," he said. Hyun led June to a small observation room where they could look out at the space around the station. He pointed to a control panel. "I modified our ship's scanners to do a deep scan of Concord space," Hyun explained. "Look what I found." The screen showed images of massive structures orbiting several planets in Concord space. The structures were like huge satellites with strange patterns covering their surfaces. "What are they?" June asked. "I don't know exactly," Hyun replied. "But they're broadcasting some kind of signal constantly, and the Concord never mentioned them to us." The next day, June confronted High Arbiter Doral during their scheduled meeting. "We've discovered orbital structures around your planets that you didn't tell us about," June said directly. "What are they?" Doral's 4 eyes blinked, slowly. "Your scanner should not have been able to detect those." "But we did," June replied. "What are they?" "They are part of our emotional management system," Doral explained without showing any concern at being discovered. "They help maintain the peace and efficiency of our society." "By controlling what your people think and feel?" June asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "By helping them move beyond primitive emotional thinking," Doral corrected. "Captain, your people still cling to pain and grief as if they have value. They do not. They only hold you back." "We believe differently," June said firmly. Doral tilted its head. "Yes, and that is both interesting and concerning to us. For our diplomatic relations to advance, humans will need to evolve beyond their attachment to suffering." That evening, the human delegation gathered in June's quarters. The room had been carefully checked for listening devices. "We need to report this to Earth," Hyun said. "These people aren't just different from us. They're erasing their own emotions and memories, and it sounds like they want to do the same to us." "I agree," Hyun said. "We should leave now." June was about to respond when his computer beeped. A message had arrived, but not from Earth. The sender was unknown. The message contained only coordinates somewhere in Concord space, and a short text. "Come, see what they made us forget." The three humans looked at each other in silence. "It could be a trap," Hyun said at last. "Or it could be someone who needs help," Yoon countered. June looked at his sister's bracelet. What would Minji do in this situation? She would want to know the truth, no matter how difficult it might be. We need to find out what's really happening here, June decided. Something is very wrong with the Concord, and I think someone is trying to tell us what it is. What about Earth's orders? Hyun asked. We'll tell them we're investigating a new lead, June replied. But we need to see what's at these coordinates first. Later that night, as the human quarters grew quiet, Tella moved silently through the darkened corridors of the station. She entered a small maintenance room and placed her hand on a hidden panel. A secret compartment opened in the wall. She took out a small device and whispered into it. They received the message. I think they will come. A voice responded from the device. Good. We don't have much time. The Memory Directorate suspects there are rememberers on this station. What if the humans don't understand? Tella asked, her voice showing more emotion than any Concord official would allow. They must, the voice replied. They remember their dead. They feel grief without breaking. They might be the only hope we have left. Tella put the device away and closed the hidden panel. As she turned to leave, she noticed a small tear had fallen down her cheek. She quickly wiped it away. If anyone saw, she would be sent for immediate emotional adjustment, but deep inside, a feeling she wasn't supposed to have grew stronger. Hope. The ship Remembrance moved quietly through space, its engines running on minimal power to avoid detection. Captain June Kim stood on the bridge, watching the small moon grow larger on the view screen. According to the mysterious coordinates they had received, this was their destination. Any signs of life? June asked. Lieutenant Sue checked her instruments. Very faint energy readings. If someone is down there, they're being careful not to be noticed. It could still be a trap, Dr. Hyun warned. He had been against this mission from the start, arguing that they should return to Earth with what they already knew about the Concord. We need to know the truth, June replied simply. He touched his sister's bracelet, a habit that had grown stronger since they learned about the Concord's memory practices. The thought of forgetting Minji, of having her erased from his mind, was unbearable. Lieutenant Yoon joined them at the main console. I've analyzed the moon. It's a former mining outpost abandoned over 100 years ago according to Concord records. The perfect place to hide. June nodded. Take us in, Lieutenant Sue. Maintain stealth protocols. The ship descended toward the moon's surface. The landscape below was gray and barren, dotted with old mining equipment and abandoned buildings. Sue guided the ship toward a large crater where the energy readings were strongest. As they landed, June organized a small team to explore the surface. He would lead, with Hyun and Yoon accompanying him. They wore light spacesuits as the moon had only a thin atmosphere. Stay alert, June told his team as the airlock opened. We don't know what we're walking into. They stepped onto the moon's surface. Dust rose around their boots as they walked toward a cluster of old buildings at the crater's edge. The structures were made of metal and stone, weathered by time, but still standing. The energy readings are coming from underground, Hyun said, checking his scanner. There must be an entrance nearby. They searched the buildings and found nothing but empty rooms and broken equipment. Then Yoon called from outside. Captain, over here. She stood beside what looked like an old elevator shaft. The platform was gone, but metal rungs were set into the wall, leading down into darkness. June shined his light down the shaft. This is it. Stay close. They climbed down, the light from their suits casting long shadows on the walls. After about 50 meters, they reached the bottom. A tunnel stretched before them, lights flickering dimly along the ceiling. Someone's definitely here, Hyun whispered. They moved cautiously through the tunnel until they reached a heavy metal door. Yoon was about to look for a way to open it when it swung inward on its own. A figure stood in the doorway holding a light. You came, the figure said. We weren't sure you would understand our message. The figure stepped forward, revealing itself to be an alien with features similar to Doral species, but older, with wrinkled blue skin and eyes that showed something the humans had rarely seen in Concord citizens. Emotion. I am Cav, the alien said. Welcome to the last free minds in the Concord. Cav led them through the door into a large underground chamber. The space was filled with aliens of different species, all working at various stations with old but functional equipment. Children played in one corner, something the humans had never seen on the Concord station. "What is this place?" June asked, looking around in wonder. "We call ourselves the Rememberers," Cav replied. "We are those who refuse to forget, who fight against the memory adjustments. Some of us were born here, children of those who escaped. Others found their way to us after experiencing echo dreams too strong to ignore." Cav led them to a central table where several other older aliens waited. "These are our elders, the last who truly remember the time before the Great Stabilization." One of the elders, a small green alien with 6 limbs, spoke up. "We've been watching you humans since you arrived. You still mourn your dead, you keep your pain and learn from it. You are what we used to be." "What happened to your people?" Yoon asked gently. The elders looked at each other, as if deciding how to begin. Finally, Cav nodded and touched a device on the table. A holographic image appeared, showing a beautiful planet with blue oceans and green land. 300 years ago, the Concord was different, Cav explained. "We had emotions like you humans. We laughed and cried, we loved and mourned, we fought and made peace, but then the plague came. The hologram changed, showing people of various species lying sick in hospital beds. It spread across multiple worlds," Cav continued. "Millions died every day. No cure could be found. Society began to collapse as more and more people lost loved ones to the disease." "What did your leaders do?" Hyun asked. "They created the first memory adjustment technology," Cav replied, his voice growing sad. "At first they said it was to help people cope with grief, a temporary measure to prevent societal collapse. People agreed, desperate for relief from their pain. The hologram showed large machines being built, similar to the orbital structures Hyun had discovered. But the leaders saw an opportunity," another elder said. "They realized if they could erase memories of the dead, they could erase other things too. Memories of injustice, of oppression, of anger at those in power. They expanded the technology," Cav continued. "Soon it wasn't just grief being removed, but all emotions they deemed disruptive. Anger, sadness, even deep joy, which they said made the pain of loss worse." June frowned. "How could everyone agree to this?" "They didn't," Cav said grimly. "Those who resisted were labeled emotionally unstable and subjected to stronger adjustments. Some were completely wiped and reprogrammed. After a generation, most people didn't even know what had been taken from them." Yoon's eyes widened in horror. "They erased your ability to feel." "Not completely," the Green Elder said. "They couldn't remove emotions entirely without destroying our minds. So they dampened them, controlled them, directed them toward productivity and obedience." Cav touched the device again. The hologram showed images of different alien species, ones the humans had never seen in the Concord. These were other civilizations the Concord encountered, Cav explained. Species who refused to join them, who valued their emotional freedom too much to give it up. "What happened to them?" June asked, though he feared he knew the answer. "They were pacified," Cav said softly. "Their leaders were eliminated. Their populations were either adjusted or—" He didn't finish the sentence. "And all memory of their resistance was erased," another elder added. "The Concord history you've been given is a fiction, a story crafted to hide centuries of control and oppression." June thought about the conversations he'd had with Doral, about how the High Arbiter had spoken of human emotions as primitive things to be overcome. "Why did you contact us?" he asked. Cav looked at him with eyes full of emotion the Concord would have erased. "Because we saw in you what we lost. The ability to remember pain yet still move forward. To honor your dead, yet fight for the living. We believe this human quality might be the only hope for freeing our people from this emotional prison." Before June could respond, alarms began to sound throughout the underground base. A rememberer rushed into the room. "Ships approaching," the alien shouted. "Conquered enforcement vessels." Cav's face paled. "They've found us, after all these years in hiding." "How?" Hyun asked. "Did they track our ship?" "It doesn't matter now," Cav replied urgently. "What matters is the archive. It must not be lost." "What archive?" June asked. Our true history, Kav explained quickly. Records of everything the Concorde made our people forget. If it's destroyed, there will be no proof of what really happened. The ground shook as something heavy landed on the moon's surface above them. They'll be through the tunnel soon, one of the elders said. We need to evacuate. June made a quick decision. Come with us. We can take you and your archive to our ship. Cav looked surprised. You would help us, even though it might bring the Concorde's anger on your own people? June touched his sister's bracelet. No one should have their memories taken from them. No one should be forced to forget those they've lost. As they rushed to organize the evacuation, the door to the chamber burst open. June expected to see Concorde soldiers, but instead, a familiar figure stumbled in. It was Tella, bleeding from a wound in her side. They're coming, she gasped. I tried to mislead them, but they know you're here. Yoon rushed to help her. You're one of the Rememberers. A secret ally, Tella managed to say through pain. My parents were Rememberers. They were caught and adjusted when I was young. I pretended to comply, joined the Concorde service to help others like them. A louder explosion rocked the base. There's no time, Tella said urgently. You must take the archive and go. Show your people what it means to remember. Chaos filled the underground base as the Rememberers rushed to escape. Captain June Kim shouted orders over the noise of distant explosions. The Concorde forces were getting closer. Evacuate everyone to the ship, June told Lieutenant Su through his communicator. Prepare for emergency departure. All around them, Rememberers gathered their most important possessions. Parents held children close. Elders carefully packed data devices containing their precious records. Dr. Hyun rushed toward June, carrying a small metal box. Cav says this contains copies of their most critical historical archives, he explained breathlessly. We need to get this out at all costs. June nodded and turned to help an elderly Rememberer. The alien moved slowly, clutching a small object that looked like a photograph. Please, the elder said, pressing the photo into June's hand. If I don't make it, remember them, my family, before the adjustments took them from me. June looked at the image. It showed a group of smiling aliens, their eyes full of emotion. He carefully tucked it into his pocket. You will make it, he promised, and your family will be remembered. At the main entrance tunnel, Lieutenant Yoon was organizing Rememberers into groups. We'll move in stages, she explained. The children, and elders first, then the others. Tella leaned against the wall nearby, her hand pressed to her wounded side. Yoon had bandaged her as best she could, but the injury was serious. Tella, you need to go with the first group, Yoon told her. Tella shook her head. Not yet. There's something I must give you first. With a shaking hand, she pulled a small crystal from her pocket. This is what they would kill for. The location of the Central Memory Archive. What is that? June asked, joining them. The heart of the Concorde's memory manipulation system, Tella explained, her voice weak. It contains copies of all erased memories. They keep the memories they erase? Hyun asked, shocked. Not out of respect, Tella said bitterly. As insurance against technology failure. If the system ever breaks down, they want to be able to restore the right memories to the right people. Another explosion closer this time shook dust from the ceiling. We need to go now, Eun urged. June helped Tella to her feet, but she stumbled, coughing blood. I won't make it, she whispered. Don't say that, June insisted. We'll get you to our ship's medical bay. Tella pressed the crystal firmly into his hand. Show them what it means to remember, she said, repeating the message they had received. That was my message to you. I sent it because I saw how you honored your dead sister, how you carry her memory with you without breaking. June's eyes widened. How did you know about my sister? I accessed your personal files, Tella admitted. I needed to understand human grief. I needed to know if you could help us. Another explosion, this one rocking the entire base. Part of the ceiling collapsed nearby. Go now, Tella urged. The crystal will lead you to the Central Archive. It's located within the Memory Directorate on the conquered capital world. We'll come back for you, June promised. Tella shook her head, a sad smile on her face. For once I will remember something the Concord cannot erase. I will remember that I helped humans bring back what we lost. The first group of rememberers had already started moving through the tunnel. June gave the order for the second group to follow. He looked back at Tella one last time before joining his crew. The journey to the surface was difficult. Some tunnels had collapsed, forcing them to find alternative routes. When they finally reached the crater where their ship waited, they saw Concord vessels circling overhead. "Run for the ship," June ordered. "Lieutenant Sue, prepare to take off the moment everyone is aboard." The rememberers rushed across the open ground. Beams of energy struck the surface around them as the Concord ships opened fire. Dust and rock exploded into the air, but most of the shots seemed designed to scare rather than kill. They want prisoners, Hyun realized. People to adjust. The thought made them run faster. The Remembrance's ramp was down, crew members helping rememberers board. June stayed outside, making sure everyone got in. When the last rememberer was aboard, he finally ran, up the ramp himself. "Go, Lieutenant Sue," he shouted. "Get us out of here." The ship lifted off, shaking as energy beams struck its shields. Sue piloted skillfully, weaving between the Concord vessels and accelerating toward space. "Shield status?" June asked as he reached the bridge. "Holding at 60%, a crew member reported. "They're not using full weapons. I think they want to disable us, not destroy us." "That won't help them," June said grimly. He turned to Hyun. "Can you jam their communications? We need to buy time to get away." Hyun nodded and got to work. Meanwhile, Yoon was helping the rememberers settle into the cargo bay, which had been quickly converted to temporary living quarters. After several tense minutes, the ship broke free of the moon's gravity and accelerated to full speed. The Concord vessels pursued but fell behind as Sue executed a complex series of maneuvers through an asteroid field. "We've lost them for now," Sue reported, "but they'll track us eventually." June nodded. "Get us to a safe distance and then hold position. We need to decide what to do next." In the ship's conference room, June met with his officers and Kav. The Rememberer elder looked tired but determined. "Thank you for saving my people," Kav said. "We have lived in hiding for so long I had forgotten what it felt like to hope." "What happened to Tella?" Yoon asked gently. June shook his head. "She didn't make it, but she gave us this." He placed the crystal on the table. Kav's eyes widened. "The location of the Central Archive. We've been searching for this for generations." I said, "It's on the Concord Capital World, inside something called the Memory Directorate," June explained. "The most heavily guarded place in the Concord," Kav confirmed. "No rememberer has ever gotten close to it." Hyun studied the crystal. "I can connect this to our systems, see what information it contains." While Hyun worked, June faced a difficult decision. "We need to contact Earth. They need to know what we've discovered." "And what exactly have we discovered, Captain?" Yoon asked. "A civilization that erases its people's memories? That wipes out entire species who won't conform? Earth might not believe us without proof." "The crystal might give us that proof," Hyun said, looking up from his work. "It's not just coordinates, it contains access codes, security protocols, everything we'd need to infiltrate the archive." "And what would we do then?" Sue asked. Yoon leaned forward. "What if we could use their own system against them? The archive contains all the memories they've taken. What if we could broadcast those memories back to the people?" A heavy silence fell over the room as they considered the idea. "The shock could be devastating," Hyun said slowly. "Centuries of suppressed grief and trauma suddenly restored, but it would be the truth," Kav said quietly. "Their truth, stolen from them." June thought of his sister's bracelet, of the comfort her memory gave him despite the pain of her loss. He thought of the Concord citizens living their lives never knowing what they had lost. "We need to contact Earth," he decided. "Tell them what we found and ask for instructions." The message to Earth was sent, encrypted on their most secure channel. The response came hours later. "Captain Kim, your report has been received with grave concern. The Concord's memory manipulation technology poses a potential threat to Earth and all free civilizations. However, we cannot officially sanction action against them without more evidence. You are authorized to proceed according to your best judgment. Remember your oath to protect humanity and uphold its values. Earth stands with those who remember. Jun read the message to his officers and Cav. It was clear between the lines. Earth would not officially order them to act, but they would not order them to stop either. So it's our decision, Yoon said softly. Not just ours, Jun replied, looking at Cav. This is your people's freedom at stake. Cav stood straight, emotion clear in his ancient eyes. For 300 years we have kept the flame of memory alive. We have carried the burden of truth while our brothers and sisters lived in ignorance. We are ready to help them remember, whatever the cost. Jun nodded and touched his sister's bracelet one last time. Then we go to the Central Archive. We return to the people what was taken from them. He looked at his crew. This will be dangerous. The Conquered will do everything to stop us. I won't order anyone to come. One by one, his officers stood. For the rememberers, Yoon said. For the truth, Yoon added. For those who were forgotten, Sue finished. As they began planning their mission to the conquered capital world, Jun thought of Tella's final words. Show them what it means to remember. Soon, the entire Concord would learn that lesson for better or worse. The Concord capital world glowed like a jewel in the darkness of space. Its cities spread across the surface in perfect patterns. Its orbital platforms moved in precise orbits. Everything about it spoke of order, efficiency, and control. The ship, Remembrance, approached under disguise. Dr. Hyun had modified their systems to appear as a Concord supply vessel. It wouldn't fool the authorities for long, but they only needed a few hours. Captain Jun Kim studied the plans of the Memory Directorate. One last time, the building stood at the center of the capital city, a tall tower of white stone and gleaming metal. According to Tella's crystal, the Central Archive was located deep beneath it. Are we ready? Jun asked his team. Lieutenant Yoon nodded. She would lead the team into the directorate with Hyun and 2 security officers. Jun would remain on the ship with Cav and the other rememberers to coordinate the broadcast once they accessed the archive. Remember, Jun told them, the goal is to access the archive and connect our modified transmitter. Try to avoid confrontation, if possible. And if it's not possible? One of the security officers asked. Jun's face was grim. Protect each other and complete the mission. What we do today will change the Concord forever. The team left the ship through a cargo bay, dressed in Concord maintenance uniforms created using the Rememberer's knowledge. They carried tools that concealed their real equipment. As the team departed, Cav approached Jun. Your people risk much for us, the elder Rememberer said quietly. We risk it for everyone, Jun replied. No one should have their memories taken from them. On the surface, Yoon led the team through the busy streets of the capital. Concord citizens moved around them, their faces calm and their voices flat. None looked twice at what appeared to be ordinary maintenance workers. It's strange, Hyun whispered as they walked. They look so peaceful, but at what cost? They don't even know what they've lost, Yoon replied. They reached the Memory Directorate without incident. Using access codes from Tella's crystal, they entered through a service entrance. Inside, they followed the route they had memorized, moving deeper into the building. Security will be heaviest around the main archive entrance, Yoon reminded them. We'll use the emergency maintenance shafts to bypass it. The plan worked until they reached the lower levels. As they turned a corner, they came face to face with a group of Concord security officers. There was a moment of tense silence before one of the officers said, Maintenance is not scheduled for this sector. Yoon stepped forward, holding up a forged work order. Emergency repair. There was a power fluctuation in the cooling systems. The officer studied the order, his face showing the faint doubt that was the most emotion Concord officials ever displayed. I will verify this. Before he could use his communicator, one of the human security officers acted, A brief struggle followed. When it was over, the conquered officers lay unconscious on the floor. "We need to hurry," Yoon said. "They'll know something is wrong soon." They dragged the unconscious officers into a storage room and continued downward. Soon they reached a massive door marked with symbols of authority. "This is it," Hyun said, his voice hushed. "The Central Archive." Using the final access code from Tella's crystal, they opened the door. What they saw inside made them stop in shock. The archive was enormous, stretching farther than they could see. But it wasn't filled with computers or data storage as they had expected. Instead, it contained countless glowing orbs, each about the size of a human hand. The orbs floated in the air, pulsing with gentle light. "What are these?" Yoon whispered. Hyun scanned one with his equipment. His face paled. "They're consciousness fragments, not just stored memories, but pieces of actual minds." "That's impossible," one of the security officers said. "Not for the Concord," Hyun replied. "They've preserved fragments of consciousness to maintain the purity of the extracted memories." "Are they aware?" Yoon asked, horrified. Hyun nodded slowly. "In some limited way, yes. These fragments have been experiencing a form of trapped awareness for centuries. The horror of it struck them all. Billions of consciousness fragments, kept in a twilight state, unable to truly live or die. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. "They know we're here," Yoon said. "We need to connect the transmitter now." Hyun worked quickly, setting up their equipment. Back on the Remembrance, June received their signal. "We're connected to the archive." Hyun's voice came through the communicator. "But Captain, it's worse than we thought. These aren't just stored memories, they're partial consciousnesses kept in suspension." June exchanged a shocked look with Cav. "Can we still proceed with the plan?" "Yes, but we need to be careful," Hyun replied. "If we just dump all these memories back into the population at once, it could cause widespread psychological collapse." "What do you suggest?" June asked. Lieutenant Eun's voice came through. "What if we structure the release, base it on human grief rituals, create a guided remembrance that acknowledges loss while providing emotional context?" Cav nodded slowly. "A way to help them process what they've lost." "Do it," June ordered, "and hurry." On the ship, June and the Rememberers worked to modify the broadcast. They would use human mourning rituals as a framework, guiding the Concord citizens through the process of remembering and grieving. In the archive, the team could hear Concord security forces approaching. They worked frantically to complete their preparations. "We're ready," Hyun finally reported. "Initiating broadcast now." Across the Concord capital, and then spreading to the entire empire, the broadcast began. It started gently, introducing the concept of memory and loss. Then it gradually revealed the truth of what had been taken from them. In the streets, Concord, citizens stopped walking. Many collapsed to their knees as suppressed memories returned. Parents remembered children lost to the plague. Children remembered parents taken for adjustment. Friends remembered friends who had resisted and disappeared. The memory director at High Arbiter Doral rushed into the central control room. "Shut it down," he commanded, his voice showing more emotion than any human had heard from him. "Cut all communication systems." But it was too late. The broadcast had spread too far, reaching too many minds. And as his own suppressed memories began to return, Doral himself faltered, gripping a console for support as he remembered things long erased from his mind. As the human team fought their way back to the surface, they witnessed the transformation. All across the city, conquered citizens were weeping openly, holding each other, speaking names that had not been spoken for centuries. They reached the ship and took off, evading the few conquered vessels that still tried to pursue them. Most of the conquered military seemed to be in disarray as soldiers and officers alike grappled with returning memories. 3 months later, June stood at the window of a diplomatic meeting room on a neutral space station. The conquered had changed. The memory adjustment technology had been dismantled. New memorials appeared daily across their worlds as people remembered those they had lost. Doral entered the room. He looked different now. His face showed clear emotions. including grief and regret. Ambassador Kim, he said, using June's new title. Thank you for meeting with me. High Arbiter, June acknowledged. Just Doral now, the alien corrected. We have dissolved the old government structures. We are building something new. Something that honors both life and death. June nodded. Earth is pleased to hear this. We look forward to establishing true relations with your people. It has not been easy, Doral admitted. The weight of memory is heavy. Many struggle with grief long suppressed. But you are facing it together, June said. That makes the burden lighter. After their meeting, June watched from a viewport as Doral visited a newly built memorial on the station. The alien placed a small object beside the names of those who had died in the Great Plague. It was a personal token for someone he had been forced to forget. Beside Doral stood a young conquered citizen, asking questions about how to properly honor the dead. Doral looked up at the stars where Earth shone as a distant point of light. We asked the humans, he told the young one. They've remembered for us until we could remember for ourselves. June touched his sister's bracelet and thought of Tella, who had died so others could remember. He thought of the rememberers, now free to live openly. He thought of all those across the conquered who were learning to weep for their dead and love, their living. The empire of cold efficiency was gone. In its place, an empire of tears was being born. But these tears, painful as they were, carried healing that no technology could provide. June smiled slightly. Humans had taught the stars how to weep. And in their weeping, they were becoming truly alive.